Hello and welcome, potential friends and adventurers. Today we are going to talk about how to DM for Slice of Life or have pleasant conflict. I'm Em and welcome once more to the DM table. Now, frequently I hear people wonder whether it's fine, whether it'll be boring to lead something akin to Slice of Life. Well, first and foremost, you don't have to have it adhere strictly to everyday things only. It doesn't have to be that sort of slice of life. Slice of life can usually refer to any sorts of daily lives of potentially interesting people or in interesting places. It also can integrate in any sort of campaign, and the campaign is all the richer for it. As for sprinkling it a little, I'm sure that this will help even in that particular case. For your inspiration, as to not have it boring, I suggest thinking about it. Did you read some books that have interesting interactions that are not a source of pain for the protagonist? They're not enemies trying to attack the player. They're not somebody that would do them harm. They are perhaps rivals, competitors, challenges, perhaps sports or tournaments, perhaps something else. Maybe the character is trying to become a writer, and that in itself is a challenge. After all of that can be done in an interesting manner. As for how to do it, well, I'll first list out some more inspiration and then we'll delve into detail when we think about it. After all, the more you think about what you liked when you saw some delicious slice of life that you desired for yourself, the more you'll be knowing how to DM for the same effect. You will be able to gift the exact right challenge, exact right opportunities to roll, exact right confrontations, and exact right rewards to your players if you yourself have delved greatly into the subject matter in many numerous occasions. Therefore, what are your favorite inspirations for Slice of Life, and do you combine them? Does your dungeon contain cooking, or does your cooking show not contain any dungeons? Do you read what happens in some interesting wizard academies? Do you play games in which there is interesting school life, whether in a Renaissance-ish setting or in a modern day setting? Now, any of those, and even a really traditional sort of D&D-like shows, if you think about it, have lots of what is called slice of life. As I said, from cooking to sports to otherwise, and all of that can be very interesting. Or did you not hear of that famous joke about card games on motorbikes? If you have, you already probably have a feeling on what to do. You already probably have some ideas on what campaign could this be, but you only need a system for this. Now, you might search a system for this, or you might modify a system you already know for this. But either way, you now know that you need such and such resolution methods for your campaign that will have lots of interesting things that are not necessarily traditional battle that the system offers. And as soon as you know this, you can get right down to work. I might have some interesting surprises about this later down the line, but for now, let's just individually customize our systems so that we can lead Slice of Life appropriately. Also, should you want to lead to audience that wants also some conflict, but that's not as taxing, perhaps, you can fall back to the good old zombies, robots, or even friendly creatures that just want to tussle a bit playfully and play with you, and you only need to sort of chase them off or beat them in an art or a sport or something like that for the conflict to be over. I'm sure you all know what I'm alluding to here. You don't need to be killing your enemies all the time for you to have fun whilst competing against them. And let's not forget those rivals. They are really fun. They can be your boss, they can be your friend, they can be your enemy, but what they really are is your method to have conflict and like it too, even when it's very serious. So even after all that, if it's not sufficient, maybe... Well, somebody said it as a joke once on some forums, I think, but have your players play a MMO from inside your campaign. Maybe that'll be awesome. After all, you don't have to stick to cliches you don't like. You don't have to despise MMOs just because they're bad in this plane of existence. They could be wonderful in another. And not all MMOs here are bad either, but it's just a question of whether you want them interacting with tabletop and how much, since they already have roots in it. But enough about that for now. So you can have a hybrid, players fighting, but also this isn't per se as lethal or as central to the story, or it's really central and really challenging, but it's not technically lethal. Or it just fits well with Slice of Life. For the examples of the above, have you watched Grimgar or Log Horizon? Two different things, and I prefer Grimgar, even though both are good, whilst not being perfect by any means, but Grimgar does come close to a traditional D&D experience. For those who are new, you might want to look it up and watch it and see. It does have wonderful depiction most of the time. But besides those two, there are many inspirational things you could be drawing ideas from. After all, how about that campaign in that plot-thick, social conflict type of novel series you always wanted to run, that's stationed in space and in far future and has psionics and so on? Well, not quite Slice of Life, but it will have more of that than of direct fighting. You might also want to know whether you have the right players for it, or rather, would your players like to play any of this, which is easy to check by asking them about it and talking to them and having what I consider is very important for a DM, and that is a good campaign pitch. You want to explain why your campaign is wonderful to play in and which features are great. I mentioned this earlier under activity loops in a video, and I'll be mentioning it further later, but you want to explain why your campaign is wonderful to play in, what are such great things that can be encountered there, which wonderful activity loops can be expected for players, what is desirable to achieve, and you can integrate what players suggest potentially. You could ask them to suggest things that they would like. You could ask them which things they're interested in. Would they like to be a master chef, to cook at tournaments, to be a great artist, to be a basketball player, a football player, a volleyball player? Would they like to experience some sort of society, a club, a court, a courtroom? Would they love to be a king or a queen? Would they like to visit a land as an ambassador and learn about the culture? Would they like to play chess against their opponents or a card game? All of that is viable and potentially integratable in the same party as long as you do broad enough yet focused enough campaign pitch. But sometimes you won't want to have all of that, and that can be fine as long as you arrange with your players what is it that they would really like to play within your campaign, and that you should suggest that you all should do together once you have given them some initial things from your campaign pitch whilst you're talking together about how great it will be to play this campaign. Some of the nicest ideas are born from you modifying together with your players your campaign pitch until it becomes your party's campaign pitch together, you and them, all of us, all of you, until we become one party, DM and players alike, and have a campaign pitch that is the work of us together. And then everybody will love to play what you all made. Well, adventurer, I wish you luck on your campaign, and as always, if you considered this unique, you might want to spare a click, and I hope to see you next week. Bye.